It's a piece of art glass that was made probably in the late 1800s, early 1900s by Émile Gallet. And Gallet was a glassmaker in Nancy, France. The fact that he was producing glass in the Art Nouveau time period meant that he used a lot of the figures and styles that were kind of reminiscent of that period. And there are a lot of natural elements that he used in his glasswork. So here he has etched in natural flowers and butterflies, but I like the glass itself just because it's got a lot of different qualities to it. It's a heavy piece of glass. It weighs several pounds. The top on here is relatively thick, so it's good and sturdy. Structurally, it's kind of a small on the top of it, but it's got a thick base so that if you put flowers in there, it's going to keep them upright. So it was just engineered well.
I've loved antiques since I've been a little girl. At the time, even the furniture that my mother had was old furniture, and I absolutely loved her furniture.
My sister and I would get our allowance on Saturday, and we would go down to the little store down there in Hamilton, Bermuda, and each of us would buy a toy. And so that's when I started collecting Matchbox toys. And those little cars and their cute little yellow boxes.
I started taking a class in upholstery and looking for projects to recover. I found that I was attracted, for whatever reason, to old things that just had a history. I went to my first auction to find pieces that I could reupholster for this class, and I fell in love with a buffet, a mahogany veneered buffet, probably made in the 1940s, and got it for what I thought was a great price, and that was the beginning of my going to auctions every other week, and I always found something that I wanted to have.
I think everybody starts off having antiquing as a hobby. What develops from that point is when it becomes more serious or a business.
Comparing an antique store, which has got 1,000 different unique pieces, to having a retail store that sells shoes. But in the antique field, you have to go out and find it, you have to make sure it's marketable, you have to fix it up and clean it up, then you bring it into the store and display it, and then you try and sell it. I think that with antiquing, and so many things need kind of individual attention. If it's a set of silver, you need to polish the silver and get it ready. It's got to be in a presentation box, and that's got to be fixed up. And you have to do that not with one item, but you have to do it with 1,000 different items. So you could conceivably work at a store for 8 hours a day, go home at night to get your merchandise ready, take your weekends and spend every minute over the weekend trying to find merchandise. I think that you get a certain satisfaction out of the things that we collect.
Almost everything I buy, I get excited about and think it's the find of the century.
The reason I do what I do is because I enjoy the hunt.
There's just so many ways that you can find antiques. You can look in the garage sale section of the paper, and there are probably half a dozen estate sales and garage sales that are going on any one weekend.
I do most of my buying in San Francisco because there's a lot of history there.
Every single month I go to Alameda because that's become the real buyer's market.
The Alameda Flea Market, it's an institution, and it's probably one of the biggest ones in the country, and it's got pretty good quality.
People get up early in the morning to go to these sales. They'll get there at 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning. Over
the years, I've had a chance to do several different antiquing opportunities, and every time that you open up a store like that, you bring a lot of creative energy to the table. We ask the dealers to help out with the workdays. So we have one person that works on the cashier, and then I have 2 dealers that do other things. So they'll help out customers, they'll move furniture around, and things like that.
You have people that work here for you. People that are passionate about the same thing that you're passionate about. That all makes for the success of the shop, having people that are very, very passionate.
Being the owner of the store and seeing these 50 different styles that are around me, I have to have an appreciation for each one of those, and I do. When you're building a home, taking a house that might be an empty shell and filling it with antique furnishings, maybe some little modern things that might kind of accent what you got in the way of furniture and kind of complement that style, it gives you that feeling of home.
My home is furnished in a very eclectic style. I have pieces that date to, the late 1800s to pieces that are from the 1960s. And I really like to put them together in a way that they look good, but there's an element of surprise. There's a lot of interest and depth and different dimensions to the way I have my home furnished.
I think that it's a great expression of individual style, and it's a way that we can either, some girls like dressing in a certain period of costume and dress, or accessorizing with certain vintage jewelry pieces.
Whether you pick Victorian, 40s, 50s, it does give somebody else an idea of what your loves are, who you are.
Antique collecting will kind of fulfill that sense of purpose that you have, that you want to collect things in a certain style, a certain period, or have a certain purpose. It's an adventure to find out exactly what you like. I have regular customers that come in, husband and wives, and the wives will search for one item and the husbands will look for other things that they collect. It's something that people can do together.
Steve, my husband, and I were at a garage sale one time, and we were going through all kinds of boxes. It was like an estate kind of a garage sale. He found a vase that he kept fooling around with. The vase turned out to be an unsigned Steuben vase, which we only paid $4 for, and it's worth over $1,000.
Antiquing and furnishing your home with vintage and antique items. I'll compare that to buying the furniture brand new. Let's say you buy it at IKEA or some other store like that, where number one, it's not necessarily made of solid wood, and if it is made of solid wood, that means it's taken from a unsustainable resource, because the trees have to, replenish, and they don't replenish that quickly. If you think about all of the furniture that already exists and the fact that it is solid wood and made in a manner that would probably be considered a higher quality than what you would find manufactured today.
Because it is environmentally conscious and friendly and green to buy antiques.
I believe vintage furniture, antique furniture, tends to be of a higher quality, both in terms of the material as well as the workmanship.
I think that we're raised in today's time that things can be disposable.
So you buy a sofa and you use it for a year, and it starts to be uncomfortable, and you have to get rid of it and replace it with another sofa that's not going to last very long.
The table that we're sitting at right here has probably gone through 3 or 4 generations. We try and recycle or repurpose everything.
Instead of going to the store and buying something new, you can go to an antique store, you can go to an antique show or a flea market and find something that serves the purpose just as well, if not better, than the brand new item you might find at the store. People are reusing what is already around, and they find the history about it. It keeps our past alive.
All of antiques have a history behind them because they were not made yesterday. They have some kind of a genealogy that takes them from someplace in the past and through that journey and brings them to be in your hand.
It just kind of keeps that thread of history going.
And every time you see a postcard or maybe a magazine article about it, it tells you a little bit more about that period in time. When I started collecting art glass, there was a group in a little town called Loonville, and they were the Mueller Friars. They did these beautiful pieces of art glass that were many colors in one, either a vase or a bowl. And I had 3 or 4 of the pieces that they had made back in the 1920s and 1930s. I found a chandelier, and it was a wrought iron chandelier. And the chandelier was probably 2 feet in diameter, and the metal pieces of the chandelier had little chestnuts and flowers in iron. And I had to have it. It cost me a fortune, but I had to have it.